Well, first Turkey's Prime Minister banned Twitter. Now YouTube is being blocked. And the government says that it's to protect national security after a series of confidential conversations were leaked on social media. But what does this move say about Turkey? We're going to speak to guests in Wales, inside Turkey, and also in the US. Now, a little bit earlier on, I tweeted a link to one article which suggests Prime Minister Erdogan is trying to provoke protests, a bit like we saw last summer, so that he can declare martial law and cancel Sunday's local elections. Well, the hashtag YouTube blocked in Turkey has been trending worldwide. Your thoughts, welcome as ever. Here are just some of the ways that you can get in touch.
I experienced.
This is chaos.
People are going to want to know.
Let's just say something.
Welcome to the programme. Good to have your company today. If you want to get in touch with us throughout the programme, all of your comments will come to me here on my tablet and we'll try and put them to as many of the guests as we can. Let me introduce them to you first of all. We're joined by Angel, who is Turkish. She is joining us via Skype from Cardiff in Wales. Utkan is a student in Istanbul, and Hakan Kamuz is normally based in London, but today joins us from Istanbul. He's the president of Musiad UK, which is a business association based in London. Hakan, we'll come to you first of all. What do you make of the moves this week by the Turkish government? First, we saw that ban on Twitter. Now we see the blocking of YouTube. Your reaction?
Surely. Thank you for the opportunity, Chloe. I hope you guys are well in London. The ban on Twitter wasn't a government decision, it was a court decision which was being implemented by a director of communications in Turkey. And there was a 4 separate application to the courts which was approved by the judges independently. And it was asked to be implemented by Twitter, which chose to ignore Turkish state rules. And the banning came after this. It wasn't Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government banning Twitter, as it was said in the beginning. And YouTube saga, as you guys know, is only a recent one, and this is a matter of national security. And again, this was a decision done directly by the government, and this was implemented because it's a matter of national security. The 2 separate things.
Well, before we pull up a video that we've got from the Prime Minister speaking at a rally, it is worth pointing out, as we heard there from Hakan, it's actually a court which has now said that Twitter cannot be banned, but it could take several weeks before that is given free access again to people in the country. But let's pull up that video. It's of Prime Minister Erdogan speaking at a rally in the east of the country on Thursday.
Today, he and his community again uploaded something onto YouTube about national security. A meeting is held at the Foreign Ministry about the tomb of Suleiman Shah in Syria. They even uploaded this video on YouTube. This is immorality. This is shameful. This is dishonourable. We will get into their cave. Who are you serving by doing audio surveillance of such an important meeting?
Well, that was Prime Minister Erdogan speaking to people at a rally earlier this week, blaming a political opponent for those leaks. Let's cross now back to Utkan. Also worth saying, actually, his squeaky voice. Lots of people have been taking the mickey on online. That is because he'd lost his voice from doing so many rallies, just in case you wondered why it was so high-pitched. Let's bring back in Utkan, who's a student in Istanbul. Utkan, what do you make of what you heard there from your Prime Minister?
Well, he keeps defending the bans. However, I don't think it changes the reality of the censorship. I mean, if you take restrictions on Twitter and YouTube, and if you don't let people access them freely, then it is a clearly censorship, and it is actually against the freedom of expression. And I can't understand why he's still insisting on these censorships.
Angel, speak to Utkan. You're a similar age. Lots of people would call you the social media generation. Do you agree with what he's saying?
The Prime Minister, I agree what he's saying 100%, because as I was a witness on Twitter, Twitter is the one and only thing people start being violent towards other people, which we shouldn't have done, because I am Turkish myself and I've got all this violation within the words. They are hurtful and they are very disrespectful, especially towards women. As the Prime Minister mentioned earlier in one of his meetings during this week, saying that Twitter should have done the following cases which have been caused so much trouble, especially for the women in Turkey.
Can speak to Angel. I'm keen for you to have a conversation.
Yes.
Well,
And then basically...
Well, hang on, Angel. Let Akkan respond to you.
Okay.
well, I definitely agree with you, and it restricts our lives really, really harmfully. We cannot, actually, we can violate the ban by the VPN addresses and DNSs, but it definitely affects the users, the other users who cannot access to Twitter freely.
Yeah, but
Are you with me?
the trouble started for the Taksim Square last year, only a few months back. So the Twitters, I agree that people should have their say on the free
Angela, are you with me?
internet site, but it is also not good. They're also using in bad ways. So I was a victim yesterday. How dare somebody can tell me, if one of my leaders see what you're saying on Twitter, he will definitely come and punch your face. This is absolutely not acceptable.
Angel, unfortunately, we've lost the line to Akkan, so he can't respond to that. But I'm pleased to say that we can welcome into the conversation Amran Kitselkaya, who is in Istanbul, and he's the managing editor of Hurriyet Daily News. I know you've been listening to us so far. What have you made as a journalist about this ban for both on Twitter and on YouTube?
Well, first, let's clarify something. What your respected guest had said from Müsiyat, that this is a court ruling, not an executive decision. It's actually inaccurate information, because a Turkish court on March 21st, it ruled that it cannot repeal the ban on Twitter because it's an executive decision. It's not a judicial decision. It's not a ruling. It's not a court ruling. So the ban on Twitter is definitely an
But if you're talking about the ban on Twitter, opponents of that ban on Twitter would say, OK, it came from the courts, but ultimately this was a decision by the government. It has since been overturned. But opponents see this as interlinked. They see no separation between the courts and the government.
The government itself saying is there are 3 different court rulings against Twitter on certain Twitter accounts, for the removal of content or for the suspension of these accounts, these specific accounts. But the government itself, by using these court orders, these vague court orders, it's completely blocked access to Twitter, which is not a judicial matter. It's completely executive decision. And with YouTube, there is no court ruling. It's directly ordered by Turkey's telecommunication directorate, which now has enormous powers under a new internet law.
Hakan, I can see that you're trying to come in. What's the point you want to make?
The point I'm trying to make here is what Emre is saying is not correct. I am saying is not correct because the applications that was made by individuals to the court, implementation, of course, is the role of the state. Let's not mix the two and then present it as if this is a government act in itself. It's not. I am clearly informed on this issue, and let's not blur the lines here. And the line is very clear. Court decisions being implemented by the state body, correct. I'm not talking about YouTube here, I'm talking about Twitter accounts and the individuals who made the applications to the court and not the state. So don't let Emre mislead you somehow. And when it comes to a government on taking action on YouTube, that is a matter of national security, and it's in an agreement of YouTube serving in this country and in many other countries in Europe or around the world, where when the national security matter comes afore, then YouTube allows government to take action. And as you know, in England, recently YouTube allowed British government to have even content removed by itself without YouTube even knowing, if the government thinks the content of it is somehow not conducive to the state national security.
Well,
Imagine
Hakan,
a radical
however this decision was come to, the reality of the situation is it's being welcomed in some quarters and very much criticised in other quarters. And we'll pull up this comment, which comes from Turkey's Nobel laureate Orhan Pamuk in a letter on the PEN International website. It's joined writers from around the world calling for the Turkish authorities to respect freedom of expression as a universal and a fundamental human right. How would you respond to that, Angel, that all that's happening here is people are being stopped from saying what they want to say? And why does anyone need to be frightened of that?
To be honest, I was just wondering, Twitter's being blocked is not end of the world. And so another question is, why all these things come up just only before the election? The public, as well as the other leaders, oppositions, they would like to just go, with the names and shames the prime minister, which has been there last 12 years. I only would say that is not fair, that's all.
Emre, do you want to pick up on that point?
Yeah, I was speaking about facts. It was a court decision that this is not.
Of course it was a court decision. You know it was a court decision.
The court decision itself was saying that it is an executive decision. That's why we cannot repeal this ban. So clear.
But for people watching... Go ahead, Angel.
Can I also say something? Yeah, as one of the friends mentioned earlier, is only between not only Prime Minister's decision, but the Twitters hasn't been obeyed the rules, which he should have done, what they should have done, because so many court orders being applied to them, they never reply to any of these. So many people are being violated on social media, which is not fair.
That's correct. Can I just say something to what Angel's saying? Twitter listens to Russian police. When the Russian police somehow warns Twitter about the contents of something on some account, it's willing to remove it or do what's necessary. Russian police, not the court. When the Turkish court makes a decision to ask Twitter to do something about it, Twitter chooses to ignore Turkish court rules. How is it? Democratically elected government and the free judiciary makes a decision and Twitter
Emre,
chooses
hang on a
to
moment.
ignore
I will
it.
give you a chance to respond. Okay, Emre, respond.
Everywhere where Twitter operates, they have to obey by the rules. And the rules of Turkish courts are implementable. Twitter needed to respect it. This is not something that was chosen by the government. It was a court decision being ignored by Twitter. Twitter is a company.
Okay, Hakan, you've made that point. Let Emre respond.
Twitter has already announced that Turkish government did not contact it before the ban. Did not request anything.
True. That's not true.
That's not true. That's not true.
It is Twitter's
That's not true, Emre.
That is not
Emre,
true.
that's not
Otherwise,
true.
why
has already announced
if they weren't aware of anything, why then Twitter should still is being blocked? It's been so many days. They've been already in contact and already went to Ankara, the capital of Turkey, and still trying to find a solution for this problem.
Twitter
they knew about it. Angel is right.
May I speak?
Okay, Hakan, a brief response and then Emre.
Okay, Angel is correct. Twitter knew about it. They cannot deny it. It's kind of a shame that Twitter has somehow allowed itself to be entangled in such a political atmosphere in Turkey. It's such a massive company. It's really a shame of their conduct because they knew these rules, court ruling existed, and they didn't do anything about it.
Well, Hakan, Twitter isn't here to defend itself on that point, so I don't want to dwell on it. But Emre, you want to respond?
Chloe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Emre.
I mean, after this ban, Twitter found a Turkish lawyer, who also represented YouTube in Turkey in the past. And he had some meetings in Ankara with all the relevant authorities and went back to San Francisco to give information to Twitter, including its co-founder. And then they made an announcement and they said that prior to the ban, there was no official request from the government about removal of any content or suspension of any account. So that's why they were a bit angry about this. Because and after that, maybe you followed it, that they started to practice something similar to what they practiced the neo-Nazis in Germany, that they suspended one Turkish account only in Turkey. So it's like country-specific suspension of accounts. not only suspension,
That's a
but
harsh
you
word
cannot
coming
see it
from you. That's a harsh word coming from you, especially you. Come on,
As a
that's not the kind of language you
Turkish
use.
person.
Well, I guess you don't understand. Twitter has a specific tool for censoring, or not censoring, but for hiding content only in one country. So German government, when it applied to Twitter, Twitter hides the neo-Nazi content only in Germany. We can see it from Turkey, you can see it from Britain, but they can't see it from Germany. And they are now starting to use the same tool for Turkish accounts too. So if Turkish government had requested this before that ban, they will do the same. But Twitter says that I'm not the attorney of Twitter. I'm not supporting them. I'm not defending them here. But they already announced this, that Turkish government did not contact them before this blanket ban, which is against the Turkish constitution and the European Court of Human Rights decisions.
Emre, Hakan and Angel, do stay with us. We're going to carry on talking about this in the next few minutes. Plenty more to come here on World Have Your Say.
No, I absolutely talking about it.
Let me say something.
No, I absolutely talking about it.
Let me say something.
Welcome back to World Have Your Say. We've been inundated with messages on WhatsApp about this conversation that you're having about Turkey, about the ban on YouTube and Twitter in the country. Many people feeling that it is a suppression of their freedom of speech, although, as we have been hearing, plenty of people equally supporting it. Nezmi in Denizli has sent us this video via WhatsApp about how Turkey would not be defeated by this ban.
But I wish Erdogan moved in the direction of openness, not censorship. Because censorship anywhere is a threat to freedom of speech everywhere. I'm not hopeful about the government's social media policy. You may receive fines, prison time, or suspended sentences for comments you made on social media websites. We are not afraid of them, and we will not.
Well, let me introduce you to more guests who are joining us on this conversation. Akkan is still with us, a student in Istanbul. Hakan Kamuz is in Istanbul. He's president of a business association. And Halil is a student also in Istanbul. It's worth saying, to clarify this conversation, that the YouTube ban came in because a secret conversation which was being had between purportedly the Turkish government and military officials about a possible strike inside Syria was released onto YouTube. And the government said this was a national security issue. This had to be banned to protect Turkey. Halil, you're in Istanbul. Do you agree with that view of the statement from the government? This was a national security issue.
In my opinion, this is I'm agree with this expression because I think if you're talking about a meeting which is like National Security Council meeting and about the foreign policy about Syria, this has to be a top secret issue. It shouldn't be served in social network sites like YouTube. And in this case, I put my national security, how can I say, more forward than the freedom of the speech in this case. But and also I think I was listening to the program, and one of the attendants of the program mentioned that some countries like US and recently England has some right on, or some bargaining power on the YouTube. Yet the countries like Turkey doesn't have this. And if now today's we are, how can I say, considering such social network site as a public place, and in a public place, I think government has some power to some extent. I mean, not overly, but to some extent, government has a need to be a power. So in this case, I'm agree with the government speech and the government reaction. But about Twitter, it's another case. I have a different idea. Because Twitter was not like the YouTube, and I think it was a coward reaction to block Twitter. And the Twitter also, in my opinion, was a kind of how can I say, reaction for the elections. You know, people start to talk about Twitter after blocking the Twitter, but before the the, how can I say, public attention was in somewhere else, like some tapes of the Erdogan, some tapes of the ministers. So the attention is just taking from some point to another point.
Well, Helen, let's pull up. I want to pull up something now, and I'd be interested to get each of your reaction on it. MotherJones.com have posted this map of countries where, as they put it, social media is under fire. Obviously, you can see there you've got Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, China, Vietnam, North Korea, all places that block Twitter, Facebook or YouTube. I wonder, Can, when you see that and your country is being compared to the likes of Iran, China and North Korea, do you think it's fair to put Turkey in the same group as them?
Of course it's not fair.
If you're asking me that question, Chloe, then...
Hakan, you go first then, Hakan.
Okay, let me tell you something. In Turkey, rule of law prevails. And this will be resolved in very soon, hopefully. Nobody would like to have Twitter or YouTube being banned in Turkey, including myself and including members of government. This isn't something that's practiced here as a policy. This is
but does it bother you, Hakan, that potentially through that map, and there's other conversations going on the internet saying there are comparisons between North Korea, Turkey and China. Does that bother you? Whether that's true or not in your mind, that is the perception for some people.
I'll be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about that detail. What I want to talk about is Turkey is where the rule of law prevails, and this will be resolved quickly. YouTube will be back on, Twitter will be back on, and we want Twitter and YouTube and Facebook to be active and millions of people using it.
Okay, Hakan, you've made that point. If you're not going to answer that question, I want to put it to someone who will. Emre, does it bother you that Turkey is being put in the same grouping as the likes of North Korea and China because of the blocking of social media?
Of course, it doesn't make me happy, and I don't think that it's completely accurate. I think the problem with Turkey now is that it is completely arbitrary decisions from a leader coming. If he wants some freedoms, then we have some freedoms. It's not same with North Korea. I mean, Turkey had got good institutions to guarantee democracy and rule of law, but what we are seeing, it's being undermined nowadays. I mean, for instance, I'm reading you from Vijaya Gadde, Twitter, the General Counsel of Twitter. Just 2 days ago, he was saying this, challenging the access ban in Turkey on Twitter's official blog. He was saying that the purported legal basis for the ban is 3 court orders, none of which were provided to us prior to the ban. So the government itself, the Turkish government itself, is now lying because it is misleading people by saying that we requested this from Twitter, but they did not do. And after the elections, I'm sure that Twitter will be on again, and that Facebook won't be banned after the elections probably. But the problem is, it is completely arbitrary. It does not, it has got no support, no institutional support. And what we have in Turkey, these good institutions that guarantees freedom of speech and democracy and all the other criteria, they are being undermined nowadays.
Emre, thank you for joining us on World Have Your Say. Hakan, we just have to go to a break. We will be coming back to carry on this conversation. We had this message from Harry in Nigeria. They say that Erdogan has become a law unto himself. If it were Israel, he would be furious. You can add your thoughts using the hashtag WHYS on Twitter. We'll carry on talking in the next few minutes. Hello, I'm Chloe Tilley. We're talking to people in Turkey about the government's block on Twitter and YouTube to protect what it calls national security. Well, opponents say it's little more than silencing the voices exposing corruption. Well, it's one of the most shared stories on bbc.com/news. So what do these moves say about Turkey? We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter and on WhatsApp. Welcome back to World Have Your Say.
Talking about it. I experience.
This is chaos. People are going to want to know. Let me say something.
And so many of you are getting in touch with us from across the world about this conversation. We're getting calls from Angola, Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, Azerbaijan, Croatia. Do keep your comments coming into us. In fact, Cass in the Netherlands has just sent us this message on WhatsApp. I can't imagine that a country that so desperately wants to join the European Union can take away social freedoms like that. Well, as I say, we've had hundreds and hundreds of messages on WhatsApp over the last 24 hours. And this woman sent us this video.
banned YouTube, but we can access to Twitter and YouTube, and we're having every information almost immediately. So no, they could not achieve what they wanted to because we are changing our DNS settings. They've also banned Google DNS, but we've changed our DNS settings to other servers. And we've also downloaded apps, VPN, and so we also have our anonymity on internet, so we can access to every new immediately.
Well, that WhatsApp video explaining how she gets around it. We're joined by Fatma, who is a Norwegian-Turkish writer in Istanbul. Hakan Kamuz is still with us, and Omar is a student in Oxford. Omar, what is the point of this Twitter ban if women like that woman is managing to get around it?
Yeah, Chloe, first of all, thanks for having me. Honestly, first of all, I admit that in democratic countries, the internet or the social media sites should not be blocked or closed. But, and also, I think it's not the only solution because there are some different ways or shortcuts to take over this by different ways like DNS or hotspot or VPN. But the issue is a bit different in Turkey right now. There are some main points, which is there are some different court decisions about removing the some contents and accounts of both Twitter and YouTube.
Well, Omar, we've got Fatma listening to you as well as Hakan. Fatma, I wonder if you want to speak to Omar, respond to what he's saying.
Yes, actually the situation in Turkey is a bit more than just the ban of the Twitter and YouTube. We as a nation are going through a learning period. This is a learning period for absolutely everyone who is lately have become a part of social media and who has become a part of the global world. And the people in Turkey, because of there's been quite an investment in education in Turkey in the last 20 years, the good things which the government has did. And this resulted in people having access to social media. And
Fatma, I hope you will forgive me for jumping in right now because the sound quality is so bad on your Skype line. We will try and sort that out and get you back involved in the conversation. Omar, just respond to what Fatma said there.
Hello? Should I take it again?
OK, Omar, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wonder if you can respond to what Fatma is talking about there. She's talking about you being a young democracy, you're very new to social media, and these problems will happen.
Yeah, I couldn't hear clearly, but I would like to mention, there are some important and top secret meetings of both foreign ministry and also the prime minister's leaks. Is just broadcasting or in YouTube and Twitter. So the government and by the court decisions has to respond that, has to do something about that. We all know what happened to Bradley Manning or Julian Assange or Snowden. We all know that. So it's unacceptable to leak to top secret recordings of the Turkey's foreign ministry or
So, Omar, you're making a point very clearly there that you're saying that national security has to take a precedent over freedom of speech. Wherever you're watching around the world, I'd be interested to see if you agree with that point. Head to Twitter. The hashtag is WHYS. Now, this article on Mashable.com asks why Turks haven't protested on the streets about this. People on the ground in Turkey say Erdogan is banning social media to provoke more violent protests. This is a very real fear that any protest will give justification to declare martial law and to cancel the the elections. I tweeted that full article a little bit earlier on. Hakan, I can see that you're laughing at that.
It's laughable. You don't understand. This government and this prime minister does not need that kind of stuff. Look, the opinion polls are quite high. Even some of the opinion pollsters who really don't like this government cannot deny numbers are above 45%. Let me tell you a point here. Since December 2013, this government and this prime minister has been under sustained attack from Twitter and YouTube. Illegally recorded conversations, allegations of wild stuff that's been said on the Twitter. This government did not shut down Twitter or YouTube. This is the point I'm trying to make here. There is no political gain in shutting down social media sites, and they have not done so.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're saying there's no political gain, Hakan. I want to, we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to bring in Raja Aqil, who's an assistant professor of Arabic and linguistics at Georgia Tech in the United States. Hang on, Raja. Let's put that point to Raja. There is no political gain for the government to put blocks on YouTube and Twitter. Would you agree with that, Raja?
Well, you've put me on the spot immediately. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for including me. Definitely, social media has become a way of life, and to ban it is a serious, grave mistake. But there must be, of course, restraints on some personal infringements and things like that. The leaks indicate that there are problems, and these problems need to be addressed. But to shut down the source, I don't think is the way to go. And banning it is not the way to go. I do understand that it's a major national security issue, but there are ways to handle that. There are ways to block the clip itself, but to block the whole source of information that has been actually flowing around us in this world, you know, moving people and motivating people. So I think it's the biggest issue here is blocking and banning social media. There must be ways.
At that point, can I say government actually made an
Hakan,
effort
I am so sorry. You're going to feel like I'm constantly jumping in on you, and I'm really not. We've got 30 seconds left of the programme. I'm really, really sorry, but thank you so much for coming on to World Have Your Say. Paul in Namibia has posted on Facebook, freedom of expression is very important in every state. It is the cornerstone of democracy. It is incredibly important. Do stay with us here on World Have Your Say. We'll carry on talking.
No, I talking about it. Let me say something.